we've got a celebrity on our hands. We should say featuring Julian Martin now. So Julian went on a impromptu trip to watch his beloved Arsenal play in Porto.
First away game.
Yeah,
in
take it away.
years. Yeah, I mean, it was quite the experience. The only downside of it was the result in the end. But who knew what was to come? And that was, I featured on AFTV, first time ever, and it was definitely an experience in itself. All I can tell you is that the team, AFTV team themselves, they're very transparent, very nice, and just open arms, very, very respectful. And I had a great experience just being on there.
Right. So obviously, I think so he invited me to go along. Unfortunately, I couldn't get away from work commitment, and he gave me
that would've been
about
a hell of
what, 2 days notice?
Well, maybe a little bit longer than that.
Okay.
The weekend before.
Yeah, no, you flew out on
week
Monday.
before.
You asked me on Friday, like, hey, can you go?
Yeah.
Well, it's like 2 days. Yeah, I don't get me wrong. I tried my best. I looked at flights and times. It just didn't work out.
Well, you could have been on the FTV. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, I would have been beaten to death, I think. I've committed that when the next round comes along, provided we get
Arsenal
good
get through.
engagement and Arsenal turn their result around.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. We're going
which
to
will
the
come
next away game, which will probably be in Spain or Germany. 'Cause
Yeah.
we're very, very likely to either play a Spanish team or a German team.
Right. So how was the experience? So what was their setup like? How were the people? How were Robbie? Like, tell me a bit about your experience with AFTV.
Yeah, so the first person I saw was actually the camera crew, and they were the ones that were probably situated elsewhere, not in the same area that that Robbie and Julian, the other Julian, not me, and Lee judges.
The less good Julian.
Good looking, yeah. But so then I noticed the camera crew, and I started speaking to them, and they were very, very nice. I mean, it was just a brief conversation, like, hey guys, are you the camera crew for AFTV? And they're like, yes, we are, and so on. And yeah, and then it just went on from there. Then the first encounter I had with Robbie was actually a very cool one, and he doesn't act like a CEO of a big ass company, because essentially he made AFTV, and it's got over 1.5 million subscribers, so the following is insane. So he was very open with me, and then I went on to speak to Lee. He was the other person that was close by at the time. Then Cecile, I think that's his name, the taller dude, he came in a little bit later. People were just still coming out. But they were the ones that came out last, actually. I think they did that deliberately so that I think they wanted to come across a little bit unnoticed in Porto. I don't think they wanted to have a lot of fire or a lot of hype. So in total,
do you feel like I've not
when
been...
it comes to away games, yeah, they don't come out when Porto fans are walking past or anything like that.
Are they worried about sort of it?
I think there was a level of that.
Incidents?
So for away games, I found, well, this is the first experience I've seen, but they did have a few Porto fans not jump in, but just like say a few words as they were walking past. But they were making sure they set up everything in a way that they wouldn't get any trouble.
Okay, fair enough. So that's a bit more. What was their setup like? Did they have like a big camera crew? Was there lots of lights, or was it a sort of a bit more down to earth, sort of a camera phone and a couple of mics?
So I believe it was a Sony Alpha camera, like it was a legit camera over 2K, and they had they had wireless mic. They've got the AFTV wireless mic and stuff like that. That was all set up. The cameraman had headphones, so he could hear the audio. He could always make sure that it was in check. Also, just before every clip that they started or interview that they started with a person, they would reframe it, make sure everyone was in line, even though they were constantly trying to put me in line. But kudos to him.
Yeah.
So I'm very well. Obviously, he had.
You've gotten quite a lot of engagement on your video. I mean,
Yeah.
if you guys haven't seen this both on our channel and on AFTV's channel, we've gone quite a good few views, and clearly as a newcomer to the scene, you're very popular. I think it's those good looks doing you well.
Potentially, I'd like to think that what I said was actually quite valuable.
Yes, I was going to come on to that. So obviously, you guys, you can go back and watch the last 6 episodes. I'm not lying. Julian tends to have very strong opinions that are not normally very well, researched or talked
Yeah,
through. I can
true.
tell you were a little bit nervous during your interview, but how do you feel like you came across? To me, you came across a much more, measured and reasonable person, if a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
How would you score
You could
yourself?
you could imagine how you go to Robbie. He's just behind the camera when I think it was Lee Judges or Julian. He was being interviewed at the time, and then Robbie's proper concentrating and he's giving feedback to those people who've been interviewing for a while, right? He was actually told Julian to slow down a little bit or whatever. Or no, sorry, speed up a little bit. He needed a bit more fluency. So he's not just ahead. He's giving advice on how to do certain interviews because he's pretty calm and collected when he does his interviews. So I went over to him and I said, "Hey Robbie, we met earlier. Do you mind if you can give me the chance to be on AFTV?" And then he was like, "More than merrier. You seem like a nice chap." And then he was like, "You want to go straight after?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he said, "Nah, don't worry about it. It's chill." And I said, "Cool. It's like you just think on your feet." And I was like, "Ooh, okay." I mean, well, what could they really ask me? I was trying to think through about the whole game, what happened, and so on. I felt like the whole interview was a great experience. I think Cecile, the person who was interviewing me, he was very, very clear, and actually he made me feel comfortable. So
It
he's
felt like it. It felt like
yeah,
they had a very warm feeling. Like, I
yeah,
don't know, like it's odd to describe it, but through the camera, it felt
sure,
like they were trying to sort of support you through. I know he was trying to line you up, but you were
yeah.
moving a lot on the camera. I think you were a bit nervous, and you could feel the energy.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine because I'm standing there, there's a light. They've got a light that's shining on you, right? And then everyone else who's interviewed before, Robbie's looking at you, Lee Judges is looking at you, everyone's looking at you. They're like, "Who's this guy trying to give like a
And trying to steal the scene, steal the camera.
exactly?" But the thing is, I had quite a few more things to say. But this is my first screening on AFTV, and more to
More
come
to
for
come,
sure.
more to come.
But yeah.
Right, so moving on to the game itself. So obviously, I think it was quite a back and forth game from what I was watching. Did it feel like how was the vibe in the stadium? How was
I would
everybody?
say Porto didn't really give us any sort of level of how should I say it? There was no threat. There's no clear threat. Arsenal created more of a threat, but having only one shot on target because we were so bent, the final third was just disgusting by
But I
us.
would argue that from watching the match, it seemed like Porto had the better chances. Maybe less chances in your mind,
Yeah, yeah.
but the Galeno chance, like where he
And
hit
then
off
he
the
hit the
post,
bar.
and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah. Okay.
and like they
Yeah,
seemed
they
like they
had the
were.
better chances for sure. But we were. The thing is, it's funny because Arsenal seem to always like to control the game, and just I've always said like they had Pepe, a 41-year-old. He's getting on, but he seemed like he was very much like still in his prime and able to control Odegaard. We couldn't play through the middle. It was a bit of a struggle, and yeah, it was a hard game away. I have to give it to Porto. They deserved to get something out of the game, and they got something good.
So I was just going to ask you. So obviously, there's been a little bit of pushback in the comments of your video. First comment is from I'm gonna give comment Maka Moriche 3054. Is saying, "Love how people are blaming Raya. If Martinelli doesn't boot the ball aimlessly and holds onto it, you don't lose the game." What do you feel about that comment?
I saw that actually, and I was actually recording it on my phone at the time. So the ball was actually there was a counter attack on, and actually it looked like we were going to get that goal, but it was just one of those things. It was a story of Arsenal's night. We couldn't get that final pass off, and I think there was a lot of nerves. Like we were genuinely nervous, and there was no reason to be because we came back. We have come off of great games. I know obviously Porto is not a Burnley, that's for sure, or a West
Is
Ham.
that the comments? I feel like somebody else made that comment. Was it some one of the other
Someone
AFTV
definitely
lots?
made something like that, yeah. So yeah, it's a bummer. So this guy, what he's saying is perfect. Obviously, there's a reply.
And the reply said, I feel like you agree more with the reply because the reply says if Martinelli got the pass right, we could have won the game.
Yeah,
His actions led to the game staying 0-0. Raya's blunder led to us losing.
I genuinely think it was Ryan's blunder. I don't think the goal, the actual shot was was a wonder goal that some people might have alluded to, or had said like this douchebag here.
Okay, so the douchebag that Julian's commenting on is a Suhal Jamil 3909. Yeah,
Thanks,
if you comment, be prepared to get called out. Where who goes? Porto did their homework. You sound like it's Porto who got into the Champions League this season after being away for so long. Lol. Surely it's Arsenal who need to play catch up and do their homework on these seasoned Champions League teams. What do you say to this chap?
This guy clearly had something going on when he was writing that, and he clearly took offense, and he didn't like the thumbnail. So I genuinely think Porto did do their homework. We didn't, not properly, that's for sure, and that's why we kind of got stuck in the mud.
So I might be talking a little bit controversial here, so forgive me, but obviously rival fan here. But from watching the game, it seems to me, if you could not yawn during my
Apologies.
it is quite late today. I just thought I'd bring you up on it because we're actually being recorded. But from my opinion, I feel like there might have been a level of arrogance from Arsenal in that. I feel like Porto, the Burnley comment, although a little bit extreme, right? I think speaks from a place of Porto gave you guys a lot of respect. They did their homework. They researched you as a bigger club, quote unquote.
Yep.
As the historic Arsenal who was in the Champions League playing this free-flowing football. They understood you were second in your league, in the best league in the world, in my opinion, the Premier League. And so they gave you that respect. They played more defensive than they probably normally would do, right? And tried to hit you on a counter.
And also, they're a different team when it comes to Champions League. Somehow they just come and perform, especially at home. Away, maybe not so much, but at home, they are.
And so speaking on that, do you not feel that perhaps, when I say arrogance, what I meant is, do you feel like Arsenal and Arteta maybe didn't research or look into how Porto plays and which like in part of your interview you talk about how they did their homework on you and knew which side you would attack down. Whereas do you have as purely as an Arsenal fan, do you know anything about Porto's team, how they play, which are their top players?
Well, I mean, I do have a few bits of content that I released on their players, and the guy that actually scored, he's not a bad player at all. Like I mean, some of them are part timers, no disrespect, but they clearly still love the football club and they still play for the football club.
So and so this speaks to my point, which is you interviewed a lovely Porto fan. Check out the shorts. And she basically said, like, these are our players and I would take these players as from obviously a biased point of view.
Sure.
But she clearly knew a couple of your players. And I would say prior to that interview, you probably didn't know. And apart from Pepe, I probably don't know anyone from Porto. My team wasn't playing them.
Diogo Costa is the goalkeeper. I know that guy. So I would say I knew two players initially.
But I feel like they knew your whole team. Like they knew
they did, and they had a lot of respect for the team. They were like, oh, Odegaard, oh, Martinelli, oh, Saka.
Yeah, and none of them turned up.
No.
Fine.
Well, okay. Before we move on, I just want to say that my interview and what I said on my interview is statistically correct. We dominated the game, but the problem is there's different levels of dominance. You can dominate the game by holding the ball, passing really well, like controlling the game, but the problem is we lacked purpose, which often is the reason why we fall short in just Europe.
So I feel like this we'll sort of try and put a hard cut here, and not maybe a hard cut. We'll sort of transition into the next part, which is the next part of conversation, which is the title race. And starting on the title race, so I would say it's a 3-horse race. Right?
Yes, most definitely, and that's lovely to see.
And you talked about falling short. So, in my opinion, your lack of purpose is driven by a lack of a central target. So, watching you guys play, I feel like you need like you have your goals are shared across your team, right? But you don't have a central figurehead who's going to pull you out of the depths. Not yesterday, but in this game, for example, Sometimes you just need that striker that you aim for, and
Yeah.
they're going to be the person.
I
who
thought you were
pulls
mainly
through.
talking about our Cam, who was Odegaard, and I think he was
No,
playing
no, no.
really
I
well.
think Odegaard
Like he
has.
was the best
There's
player on the pitch.
and there's a stat that says Odegaard has performed the most accurate number of passes.
Yeah,
You've got a
yeah.
brilliant right winger. Your left winger's fallen off a little bit.
Mm.
Your cam position and your CDM position are solid. I'm saying your strike position
Yeah.
is this sort of nebulous, unknown quantity.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's Jesus, sometimes it's Havertz.
None of those three. If the thing is, if you merged all three of those players, they would be a very good.
Which three?
Nketiah, Jesus, and Trossard. If you merged all
But-
three of their talents, they would be good. But the problem is they all have their own strengths in different ways, and that's why you need them available. We don't have Jesus.
So you firstly need them available,
Yeah.
but secondly, you need a backup. And we've just gone past the transfer window, and we've had private conversations a lot about how Tottenham have spent a lot, or Manchester have spent a lot, or Chelsea have spent a lot. Well, it's this part of the season where spending a lot comes to fruition. Now, Manchester United might get done with some financial fair play stuff. And Arsenal, unlikely because you guys have done good business. I would say Tottenham as well because they've sold quite a lot of players, although they've bought a lot.
Genuine money.
But I would say your team is still you've almost done the reverse. So my classic point on Arsenal is that you guys always need a CDM. Now you finally did that, and you got Rice, the best, probably one of, if not the best option.
He's
But
done
then
wonders for us.
what you originally always did, you've kind of completely left out, which is a striker, a striker of substance. Aubameyang, Van Persie. Where's that player in your team? Do you know what I mean?
They literally go and leave us at the wrong time. Well, okay, we got rid of Aubameyang, but Obama blood clot young. But to be honest, he is actually the top scorer.
Shout
Yeah.
outs to troops.
He's the top scorer in EFL. It's not EFL, Europa League history. It's crazy,
Okay.
huh? But who cares?
So that's where
We need an Aubameyang.
yeah. So let's do a closeout. So what do you feel like on a scale of 0 to 100? What's your percentage confidence on Arsenal finishing the season?
Finishing the season? They'll finish the season.
Finish the season first. There's only one position that matters.
Yeah. I personally think statistically.
Okay, actually
Or-
no. Do out of 100. So you have
okay.
so you have to split between Arsenal, Liverpool, and Man City. So what percentage out of 100 would you give Arsenal in that?
I would give them at the moment, if it was before this Porto game, I think my opinions have changed slightly. But then again, maybe not so because Premier League we're doing fine. So I would say I would give.
And a
them
good
thir-
run of form, unbeaten since the new year in the Premier League.
Yeah, I would give them 30.
Liverpool, first in the league currently, keeping off Man City currently, who dropped a couple of points in their most recent game. Dealing with quite a few injuries.
Yeah.
But every team deals with injuries. It's just part of the course. Looking quite strong. We didn't talk about this when it happened, but Klopp retiring at the end of the season, never to manage in England again, according to himself.
Maybe the best thing for Liverpool.
Maybe. I feel like Liverpool are a very emotionally driven club, and I feel like because of that, this kind of thing would sort of help drive them.
I think that not the fact that they've obviously brought in a lot of players, but they just seem to be playing very differently. And I don't
feel
know
like
how
there's a
soon-
nervousness though. I feel like their last win obviously 4-1, good win. But I feel like especially a statement match was the match against you guys where they lost. And I feel like that was going into that match, I had always said that if Liverpool win,
Yeah.
it's
a big
part,
game.
that's a bit you guys are out. If Liverpool draw, again, I feel like you guys are out. If you guys win, I feel like Liverpool don't really get that much damage, but I feel like I maybe misspoke, and I feel like actually it did a lot more damage than I thought. So Liverpool felt, going into the match, at least to me, felt like this imperious force that like, oh yeah, they're definitely going to win every match. Like no matter what happens, and they're still doing it, they will pull it out in the end, even if they go behind, which they did. But I feel like after losing that game, now going into every match, I'm like, ooh, I'm looking at Nunes and I'm looking at his missed chances and I'm like, is this going to cost Liverpool a title?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to move this mic a bit closer to my mouth.
So I just think that this is the first time in a long time. I think we can probably go back around the decade that we've seen something like this in terms of a free horse race. Right now, if we look at the fact that all teams still have to play each other. Actually, hold on, no, I think Arsenal's played Liverpool already, but Arsenal has to play City and Liverpool have to play City. So technically, because of how the points are, either team that wins every game can win.
Yeah.
So
So,
that's
okay, so
pretty
you gave
insane.
Arsenal 30%. How
Yeah.
much are you giving Liverpool?
So I'm going to keep it close because the points are close as well, right? So if my maths serves me correctly, I would say I would give Liverpool 35.
So you're giving Liverpool and Man City the same chance.